Getting an echo
Recording in
now.
progress.
We are recording.
Judd,
What was that?
we're getting an echo.
Okay. No, it's usually me because I'm on here twice.
It sounds like me.
You have a telephone on?
No,
How about Bill? Are we still on the line on the telephone?
No.
No. Okay, I'm off.
I should
Still-
be fine.
Still have an echo, Pat?
it's terrible. It's after you hit record. It started.
Oh, really? Okay. All right, I'm going to declare you the host, and I'm going to get off and come back in.
Good. Well,
Okay, I'll be right back.
every time we think we've resolved everything, and then 1 minute before we're supposed to start, something happens.
That's a good thing.
I don't think so.
Keeps us on our toes.
Bill is the eternal optimist. He counters all my glass half empty, glass half full issues.
Oh, you should meet my husband, then you two would get along very well.
I think my husband would be happy if I was a little more on Bill's side.
No, we'll work on it. We'll work on it.
Yes, you have been working on it. Thank you.
I charge 25 cents an hour, so I'm cheap, but I'll work for food, so.
Oh, goodness. Because Rodney should be at the carousel. This is one of our members, Heidi and Dolores, who volunteers at the local park, and he runs the carousel for the kids. So he listens to our meeting while he's running the carousel. I think that's true dedication.
How about the echo?
Let's try it. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
Well, I don't know. We've got a ghost in our machine. We haven't figured it out yet. And it's mostly me.
Okay, but more importantly, we are recording. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, we should be good to go. And it's perilously close to showtime, isn't it?
It is.
201.
In fact, a little, okay, 201.
Mhm. And it's saying 14 participants. I think we will have more.
Okay, we'll wait a few minutes.
In spite of Zooming for almost 3 years, people still come late. It's just sort of part of our nature, I guess.
But when I taught school, I used to lock the door.
You're one of those.
Yep.
Mm.
But in high school, that was tough. In college, it was easy. Because in high school, they roamed the halls and the principal was not happy. But in college, they went to the lounge. So,
Yep.
And ate and drank and talked.
There's Rodney. Heidi and Dolores, you may be in conflict with a beautiful day out there. People may be saying, do I really want to sit inside and Zoom?
At 2 o'clock, it's the perfect time to be out.
That's true, Janet.
Pat, could you make me the host again?
Oh, I did not realize that. Yes,
Sorry.
that's okay. All right, participants.
Admit. Oh,
Admit Edward, I got him.
all right.
Here you go. share. Make host. Did that work? Yep, you're the host, Judd.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you still the sub-host? Oh, yeah.
Bill, there's one tiny change to the agenda. Judd is going to talk just for 5 minutes about how to join and how to donate.
Okay, is that going to be after the break or?
Yes,
Okay,
here's the agenda.
all right. Well, we can start. My name is Bill Porter. I'd like to welcome everybody. We have a great meeting today and a presentation. Let me see. As you can see, the welcome from me, introduction of guest speakers, presentation, Q&A from Heidi and Dolores. Then we have one of my favorite things, a stretch break. And then Judd is going to talk about joining and donating to the Neuropathy Network. And then we're going to have an update of the e-biker Greg Mason, who is a guy who's going across the country, taking the good old historic Lincoln Highway. And I think he's more than halfway done. He's doing a great job. And then we're going to have a wrap up about upcoming events, meetings and webinars by Pat. And if we have some time, I hope we can introduce some new people. And I want everybody to understand that we're all in this situation together. And interaction between ourselves is good. And there's really no silly questions. So those who are new to the group or some old timers coming back, please speak up and tell us what's going on, and we'll go from there. And now I'm just turning it over to Joanne to introduce our new speakers for today.
Okay,
Joanne?
well, it's my pleasure to introduce Dolores and Heidi today. The topic is senior care, and as persons with peripheral neuropathy, I think all of us at one point or another are going to be faced with perhaps some tough decisions about what do we do next? Are we having issues that prevent us from staying put, or could we stay put if we had a little extra help? Are we in danger of injuring ourselves if we, in our current living situation? Where would we go if we had to move? And what are the resources out there for us? So one of our speakers, Heidi Garvis, has been with us. I think this is your 4th visit, Heidi. I'm not sure exactly what year you came first. You visited us, I think, in, where were we meeting? Somebody refreshed.
Annandale.
Annandale, right. And then you were here last year on Zoom. And Heidi is founder of Caring Considerations. She's been in the senior care services area working since 2006, but in 2013, she formed her own company, Caring Considerations, where she works with older adults and their families to help with these very, very hard and important considerations about where we are going to age and what are the best options, what's a choice, what's a CCRC as compared to just an assisted living facility, and so forth. And very importantly, what is the cost of some of these options? Dolores has been a volunteer in senior care for years, but about 6 or 8 years ago, she made it her career after spending 19 years in youth services. And she says that her mother was actually working in elder care before she was. So she has really been steeped in this whole topic for many, many years. And she was moved to go into this because of some personal issues in her own family. So she's really a dedicated elder care advocate. And so we'll be anxious to hear what she has to say. This is her first visit to the the PN support group. So without further ado, I'm not sure which of you is going to start us out, but you've probably figured that out. So I'll just turn it over to you.
Actually, I'd love it if Dolores would start because she's going to talk about home care, which is what most of us do when we need help. So.
Perfect. All right, give me.
Good.
Perfect. Everybody can see this?
Yes.
All right. So my name is Dolores A.B. Clearfield. Like she said, I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships, and I run the Continuum of Care program for Capital City nurses. I'm a certified dementia practitioner, and basically what we're going to go through today is the scope of services for Capital City nurses, but Capital City nurses or any other home care company, what does good look like? And what should we expect from these services? So we have been around 45 years. We service clients in Virginia, Maryland, DC, and Virginia, as well as Delaware. So
Can everybody hear Dolores? Excuse me, sorry.
No, she's fading out.
Yeah, something happened, Dolores. You kind of faded. I'm not sure why.
interesting. All right, let's stop share and try that again. Can you hear me better now?
A little better.
A little better.
Turn this up.
Just speak right into the microphone.
Okay. So I will, no one has ever in my lifetime accused me of not being loud enough.
How's your camp?
That's a first. So, all right, let's try this here.
That's
So-
better.
Much
Okay.
better.
So we've been in business for 45 years, serving families throughout Virginia, Maryland, DC, and Delaware. We service all of the counties in Northern Virginia. Locally here, we do have an office right in Alexandria as well as Sterling. And so with Capital City nurses, the scope of services for home care and what that looks like are personal care needs, our hygiene, transferring, getting to and from, back and forth, up and down. A lot of the times it can be a standby assist or it can be a full assist. So we work with patients that are having trouble with balance, all the way to patients that are currently needing a Hoyer lift to go from point A to point B. Meal preparation, light housekeeping. If there's feeding assistance needed due to neuropathy and ALS, a Parkinson's-like syndrome, that we can no longer get the utensils from a bowl to the mouth. We have patients that we work with that take advantage of the light housekeeping. Caregivers will come in, they will maintain all of the areas that you utilize. They also provide companionship. There's accompaniment or transportation if needed to appointments or errands, shopping, medication reminders, and always working in collaboration with your Medicare providers for home health, physical therapy, occupational therapy, hospice providers, following any care plans that they may leave that help you get to either maintain baseline or get to back to baseline. So a lot of the times if a caregiver is in the home and there are physical therapists coming in, occupational therapists, when they leave those instructions, the therapist will come back and say, well, why didn't we do it? Well, I wasn't comfortable. Well, if you have a private duty aid in the home, they can assist you with those exercises. What we want to do is maintain your current level or to prolong any disease process. We can't fix things all the time, but we can make the transition easier, or we can prolong the decline that comes through interventional services. So We also provide private duty skilled nursing. So in a lot of instances with home care, you will have those home health partners coming in, either they're taking care of a wound, they're providing therapy-based services, but Medicare will pay for what they call per incident, right? So you'll have a 6 to 8 week period where Medicare will cover a physical, an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, a skilled nursing to come in. And then they expect either to educate yourself as a patient or your family on how to maintain what they have done ongoing. There are a lot of instances where family is not local or they cannot maintain. So we try to refer out to our Part B providers that will come in when Part A is done. If they are not eligible or we've already exhausted that, then we provide private duty nursing on a private pay basis. So a lot of the times what that looks like for patients may be a wound or a temporary catheterization, IV antibiotics, insulin injections. Unfortunately, if you are suffering from a disease where you have to have blood sugar checks like a diabetes, or you need insulin injections on a daily basis, in the state of Virginia, a nurse is allowed to do that. A caregiver is not. So it's hard when you have any form of diabetic needs and you have a lack of mobility, or you lose your gross or fine motor skills and you can't do that for yourself, or if cognition goes and you're not cognizant enough to know that you need to check your blood sugar prior to every meal. So there are assessments that are done. The IV therapies, we work in collaboration with infusion companies that will bring the medications, but then someone does have to administer them. Most home health will set up an IV or an infusion company, but they don't come back every day for administration, which most people don't know. So when you look at what home care looks like, there's a lot of agencies that are out there and they have hourly rates, but then they have ancillary charges. They charge for their nursing assessments. They charge for incidental visits or quality assurance or supervisory visits. When you talk to anyone that can set up home care or private duty nursing, there should be a qualified intake department. They should be asking qualifying questions from you, not only about what your needs are, but your likes and your dislikes, so that we can match you with the appropriate caregiver. The plan is to have that intake, then turn that over to a designated client services coordinator. So you have a point of contact that knows you, knows your caregivers, can answer questions and deal with problems. Because the reality is, in people serving people, there are always going to be issues. Cars break down, children get sick, personalities clash. While you strive for excellence, there are always going to be times where we have to have conversations that allow for some grace on both sides. There are times when patients do not feel well and they're not in the best mood and they're not the kindest to the caregivers. And there are other times when caregivers, from a personality standpoint, you wanted somebody empathetic and loving, and you have somebody who's telling you what to do. And the perception of that is, I don't want you in my house. So there's a lot of grace that comes and a lot of transparency in the conversation and the relationship. And that's why it's very important that you have a point person that you can communicate effectively with and be honest. Your nursing assessments are what set up the care plan. There is a lot of realizations that come with accepting care. It's a lot of the times it affects our pride. We feel humbled, and the last thing that we want to do is to repeat over and over what's wrong, why we need assistance. So having a qualified nursing assessment, somebody who can document what your needs are, they can communicate effectively with that care team so that when they come in, they have a pretty good idea of what you need. Or as a family member or an adult child, if you know that your loved one has any type of cognitive impairment, when we walk in and we ask her what she needs done, she's going to say nothing. And you, as a family member, are going, she needs everything. She needs everything. Don't leave. Other times we have patients that we walk into and they're like, oh, I'm good. You don't need to stay today. And we know that they are a wander risk and we can't leave the home because they cannot be unsupervised. So the nursing assessment is multifaceted to make sure that we have a way to keep everyone in the best care, in the least restrictive environment, and keep the care plan going smoothly. So when that care plan is made, we provide the services that help with all activities of daily living, a lot of instrumental activities of daily living, housekeeping, the transportation, the medication, the meals, and the emotional support. Now, anybody that you utilize should have relationships, power partnerships that they utilize through Medicare cover agencies, elder law attorneys, geriatric care managers, home health agencies, palliative hospice, to make sure that you have an ongoing care plan that can evolve with you, and we can fix what comes into play as you navigate your journey, right? As the journey progresses, there are always things that change. And the best laid plans typically always come with a what if, right? What if this happens? And if it does happen, the company that you're working with should be equipped with relationships to be able to pull in the partners that you need to make sure that care plan continues to evolve. That's called a continuum of care. So with Capital City Nurses, we are very involved in the entire picture. We look at it from a big picture view, and then anytime our nurses, our client services coordinators hear something, see something, have a conversation with a family where there's something that needs to be put into place to make sure that you can continue to stay in that environment, wherever it is that you choose to call home, they involve the continuum of care program. And I come in and I put out the immediate fires. I basically will pull the partnerships in that are needed. Heidi and I work together quite a bit. And if it's care management that's needed to pull in home, I'll pull in home health, I'll pull in hospice, I can help with durable medical equipment. But the maintenance and the follow-up of those things either comes from a family member, the patient themselves, or care management. So we work together quite a bit. When you are looking for home care, making sure that you're dealing with a company that's licensed, bonded, and insured. There's a lot of people that work privately. That can be kind of scary because you can in turn become an employer and be responsible for employment taxes. If they become injured on your property, it affects your homeowners. And if the homeowners knows that you have someone working privately, you could lose your insurance or they can triple your premiums. You want to make sure that whoever you work with is not utilizing independent contractors. From a clinical standpoint, as nurses or the caregivers, they should be employees of the company, fully accountable 100%. They should have no contractual obligations. We're taking care of issues that arise with those what ifs and those contingencies all of the time. And if you're working with a home care company that says you need to give us a 30-day notice before you can change your schedule, what happens if you go in the hospital? What happens if your journey evolves to a point that you need to go into an assisted living or a memory care community, right? Those are not realistic expectations. Capital City Nurses, we require 24-hour notice. We do have the ability to test caregivers if we feel there's been any exposure for COVID, and ancillary fees don't exist. There is no charge for assessments. There's no charge for our continuum of care program, and we offer flexible programs. So care as a whole, home care, people think, oh, I'm going to have somebody come in for 15 minutes. They're going to help me with a shower. Care typically in home care situations has a minimum. Most companies like we are a 4-hour minimum. So utilize those services. If you need somebody to come in for bathing, have them prepare a meal, have them do some light housekeeping, have them run to the grocery store for you. Utilize that time to be productive. And at the same time, sometimes it's just sit down and have a conversation. The companionship that comes with having caregivers in the home takes away the social isolation that we saw so much of a rise in mental health come out of COVID because so many people were isolated. The care itself, it can be done, like I said, on an hourly basis, but there's also live-in programs where a caregiver essentially moves into the home and you pay per diem, per day, instead of hourly, and they will work with you throughout your awake hours and they sleep overnight as you sleep. When we have discharges from hospitals, rehabilitation centers, one of the most common things I hear is, oh, they told me I need 24/7 care. Do you sleep through the night? Yes. Are you getting up to use the restroom? Do you need help? No. Why do you need to pay for awake care overnight? Be cost conscious. Also be the person that steps off of the conveyor belt of healthcare, right? Because it is said by someone in a white jacket doesn't necessarily mean that it's right for you. It may be right in their broad spectrum view of situations, but every person, every ability level, every disease process evolves differently. So don't be afraid to step off and ask questions. You can put things in place. A lot of the times we do just because we want to be out of the hospital. But then when we get home, you can start digging a little bit deeper. But you should be working with somebody who asks those kinds of questions instead of saying, my bottom line says a 24/7 client is great for my revenue. That's not great for you because that doesn't give you longevity of care if this is going to be an ongoing issue. You need to work with people that are integrity based, that they're asking the right questions and they're giving you options. Personal care in Northern Virginia starts around $30.75 an hour for full-time care, but part-time can go as high as $35 an hour. The caregivers themselves, with minimum wages increasing as well as the cost of fuel right now, it takes a little bit more to get them to go to a part-time client. Just from a realistic expectation. And our private duty nursing, LPNs start around $65 an hour. So as you plan through this journey and you look at your costs and what expectations are, most people that need a significant amount of care will choose a live-in because they're going to have a provider with consistency that stays in the home and they don't have the foot traffic of multiple providers. And it's a per diem versus an hourly rate, so it's a cost savings. So the continuum of care program that I run basically lists out how we keep your care in motion. And the best analogy I can think of is a tandem bike, right? Both wheels have to be working. We've got to be pedaling together. We've got to be working in collaboration. So our partners can provide the Medicare covered services. They can help with advanced care planning documentation. They can help with care management. And what we do in collaboration with that is to make sure that care plan evolves and moves forward with confidence. So caregivers themselves, like I said, you'll never have one that you love and it stays consistent for the rest of your care journey. So ask questions. Let people know if it's not a good fit for you. Let the care coordinators know if you prefer a man versus a woman. If you would like to have someone that, because of hearing issues or cognition issues, you or a loved one needs someone that can speak and articulate clearly, right? Because it's going to cause frustration. These are the kind of nuances that in high levels of communication, we have a really good chance of success when we set up home care. Without that and a lot of assumptions, then that's usually when you hear, oh my gosh, don't use home care, it's awful. You hear, oh, all of the aides, they do nothing, they sit on their phone. You have somebody else who say, they came in and they really just kind of sat because I didn't want them to do anything and my daughter set this up. Well, let's have a conversation around that. If we need a more proactive aid and we know from an adult child standpoint or a spouse that they're very resistant. Okay, well, what do they like to do? Let's work at redirecting. Let's work at having conversations around activity and developing a relationship. Because a lot of the times when we need help with personal hygiene, we need help with any incontinence issues, we need somebody to basically help us from up, down, A to B. That's a lot easier to do when you establish a relationship of trust, right? Or a relationship, period. So finding the right caregivers. We have been rated best employer. We've been rated best in home care. But one of the things that we do to move people forward with confidence is I have confidence in our ability to develop and cultivate a smooth start of care. If for some reason we don't measure up, we don't charge for the first shift. We want you to know that you can move forward and basically you're protected, but you're also holding us to a higher standard because we know that we can do this. We know that if we don't do this, there's no cost for your first visit and it doesn't work well for anybody. And we don't want you to have to start and restart and start and restart. I've talked to families, they're like, oh my gosh, we've used 5 different home care companies. Mm-hmm. We would like to be your one and only, but if we end up being number 4, we want to stick at number 4 because we want to cultivate a relationship of trust with clear lines of communication so we can fix what happened. That comes through grace, right? And grace comes from trust. So anytime you have questions, you need answers, you have a friend or a family member or yourself needs information, we have an intake line that we train our intake team very well. Mary Johnson is our intake manager, and she basically goes through all of the questions and makes suggestions, because where this may be your first time dealing with this, it's not for us. We've seen a lot of these situations before, and you may call in, like I said, and somebody's told you 24/7 care is the way to go. And we're going to say, you don't need that much. Or you might call in and say, I'm having difficulty feeling the floor when I'm walking. And Mary's going to send me an email and say, hey, we're going to put some care in place, but I think she could benefit from some physical and occupational therapy, a little bit of vestibular therapy. And then we're going to pull in one of our Medicare partners to make sure that you get both. So my contact information is here. Please feel free. That's my direct cell phone number. You can call me anytime with any questions that you may have. And I will hand over to Heidi, because she will pick up basically filling everything else that I said.
I'm going to step in here. This is Joanne. If you do have questions that you want Dolores to address later, put them in chat, and or else just write them down so that you'll remember them. And because we will be having some time for Q&A at the end. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Dolores, that was excellent. And one of the things that I think is so important is that we understand these services on a broad spectrum, because we have expectations when we get home care, and we have expectations when we move to senior communities. And that's what we're all here to do, is to help educate on the nuances of what we do. And so that was excellent. I learned a few things too. So I am going to share my screen, and you see it there. And there we go.
Yeah.
So my name is Heidi Garvis. Yes, it's Jarvis with a G. And I'm a certified care manager, which I know a couple of you had questions about. What is that? Well, it is a process that I went through based on my degree. I have a human services degree, and my desire to work in this industry, which I had to be mentored for 2 years to get certified, and then I had to take a 4-hour test. I hadn't taken a test in quite a few years, so luckily I passed. And it is an honor to be a certified care manager, because aging life care managers across the nation, we're across the nation, just are a wonderful group of people, and so unknown. So I'll talk a little bit about aging life care managers as I go on, but my background is senior housing for the most part. And then, like Joanne said, in 2013, I have a registered nurse partner and myself that started Caring Considerations. And we'll talk a little bit about what we do. But I know you all have probably seen this before, but it's a good refresher, because I hope you did your homework based on these 3 things. These are the 3 options you have. And that first one is what Dolores was describing. It's the most popular. Everybody wants to stay in their home, familiar surroundings, comfortable, maybe less costly on some levels. So about 90% of us are going to age in place. But about 6 to 8% are going to move to a senior community. So I'm going to focus on that a little bit more. And then the dreaded one is living with family, or having family live with you, but it is becoming more popular. I'm not going to focus on that so much. I do have a website, and I'll put the web address at the bottom of this presentation, but it's caringconsiderations.com. And I did a blog a year or so ago about living with family, a 2-part blog, and how to make that work. I'm working with a client right now who had his mother move in, renovated a beautiful bedroom suite and everything for her. And now they're looking for assisted living because it's just not working. So sometimes it works very well, sometimes it doesn't. One of the things I do like to point out, if you are aging in place, you have to bring services in your home, not only home care or the temporary physical therapy or other things, but these are some of my favorite tools to age in place successfully. First thing is allowing somebody to have access to your house in an emergency. So that lockbox, that realtor lockbox, and I have one on my house, has been so helpful. You give the code only to certain people and you always know that they can come into your home. And if you have a lifeline pendant or some kind of emergency, personal emergency pendant, you can give that code to them so that the fire department or the paramedics don't have to take an axe to your door. Trust me, it does happen. So they will have a code, they will get the key out to check to see if you're okay. Another thing that is very helpful in those emergency situations is File of Life. So that's a magnetic little envelope with some basic information about you, your points of contact, your medications. You always fill it out in pencil, by the way, because things change, your doctors, etc. And you put that on the refrigerator. That's where the paramedics go immediately to see if you have any conditions, such as you take a blood thinner and you're bleeding. So if they know those kind of things, they can help you better. The other thing there is that purple box with, it looks like some paper coming out of it. Those are little pill packs. And there are several companies that provide that service. But sometimes when we get older, we start to lose some executive functioning, as we call it, and managing medications becomes more difficult. And that can be very dangerous, doubling up on medications, forgetting to take medications, things like that. Why not have a pharmacy, a concierge pharmacy, I call it, create a system for you that you don't have to worry about filling a pill box. And remember, home care aides can't fill a pill box. They can only say, don't forget to take your medication today. So those companies are out there. And then I think we all are familiar with home modifications. If we're going to age in place, we probably want to eliminate the entryways and the barriers and the little steps and big long staircases, because what I say is that stairs are evil. And certainly with PN, these are things you need to be concerned about. And there are many companies that can advise on those home modifications. And also, if you're a veteran, you might get compensated for those modifications. There are plenty of services in the community. I just listed one here, a village to village, well, the village to village network is a nonprofit volunteer organization in some neighborhoods. This is nationwide, but they have people that can maybe take you to the grocery store or a doctor appointment, or bring you a meal for a couple of days when you're not feeling well, or change a light bulb for you. So people can volunteer and you can receive services throughout a village concept. And those are on, like in Fairfax County, they call them neighbor to neighbor. And those are listed there at the Fairfax County Area Agency on Aging website. A lot of these resources I'm going to talk about are in my website, caringconsiderations.com, if you look under resources. Okay, so let's jump into senior living options. I know most of us don't want to do this, but this is really important, because having an open mind on when you're exploring what your options and plans are will really help you make wise decisions. Essentially, there are 3 levels of care: the independent living, the licensed assisted living and memory care, and then the highest level of care, which is skilled nursing and rehab. Now, independent living can come in all shapes, sizes, and costs. There's quite a bit to explore in the area, and I'm going to talk about continuing care retirement communities a little bit more. But there are also independent living apartments, 55 plus retirement complexes or properties with one level living, single family homes. There are a lot to choose from in this area. And what's important is that you explore some of those to see what works for you. So CCRCs, more than one level of care, like the name talks about. These are places that you move into when you're independent. And they're meant for you to age in place in that community, and they have all the services there. Restaurants, entertainment, activities, clubs. These places are like cruise ships on land. There is so much to do. You will forget that you are growing old. You will be so busy, if you want to be, at these retirement communities. Now, I'm only familiar with Virginia ones, Northern Virginia ones per se, but obviously there are some across the country and they're all a little different. But generally they have a couple different kinds of contracts. Usually it's an entry fee that's 90% refundable. That's probably the most popular one. And then some have life care contracts, which I won't go into, but those are contracts where you prepay the care you might need in that community. And it's sort of replacing long-term care insurance for that particular property. Costs will depend on the size apartment or dwelling that you're in. Most of these are apartments, but you can find some communities that have cottages. So they're maybe 2,000 square feet for a cottage, or you can get a studio apartment for 400 square feet with 400 square feet. And then the costs will differ dependent on your contract and the size of the place. Most important thing is that you start looking at these and educate yourself about them before you need them. Because I'll tell you, I get the phone call when people are in their early 80s, that's the typical one, and a desperate daughter says, I don't know what to do. And I have to make these plans because my parent did not think about this and did not share with me what he or she wanted. Gone are the days when we died in our sleep. Now we tend to linger longer, right? Assisted living, which can be in a CCRC, obviously, and memory care, but that's where you have 24-hour staff and a lot of services. You are getting 3 meals, you're getting housekeeping, you are getting transportation options. You have an emergency call pendant system. The housekeeping is taken care of for you. The laundry is taken care of for you. So that's when somebody needs help with activities of daily living, which is dressing, bathing, eating, toileting, transferring, medication management, all of that. Now, it's not a medical model per se. A medical model is the skilled nursing and rehab, which I'll talk about briefly. Memory care, and you've probably heard me say this before in years past, just because you forgot where your keys were today doesn't mean you need memory care. So I'm talking about the severe memory loss where people need a safe and secure environment with a higher staff ratio and a lot of support throughout the day. Now, here's something that some people aren't familiar with, and that's a small residential home. Here in Northern Virginia, if you are caring for 4 or more people in your home, you have to be licensed by the state of Virginia. And they're usually 8 people per home. It's a big McMansion with your own bedroom and 24-hour staff. It's a little bit more of a home-like environment, obviously. And I tend to think that people that have memory loss fit that a little bit better, or perhaps someone that's introverted, because moving to a retirement community that has 1,000 people in it can be very overwhelming. So cost, this is on everybody's mind, I'm sure. And I am just giving you very general information. To really dig deeply on the cost, I encourage you to go online, research the costs of these places, research the cost of a senior apartment, research the costs of a CCRC, look at a housing development where you actually own the house. Everything is a little bit different, but generally independent living in a CCRC for one person is going to be anywhere from maybe $3,000 to $4,000 a month. If you are a couple, then it's going to increase a little bit, maybe $1,500 more a month. So it might be more like $5,000 a month for your services, your one meal a day in independent living, your activities, your clubs, the transportation, all of the things that an independent living community would offer. Now you can consider that if you need assisted living, that cost is going to double, because what we're talking about is 24-hour staff. And assisted living and memory care mostly assisted living has a fluctuating cost based on your care level. So you've got your room and board, and you've got your care cost, two separate items in an assisted living. The care cost can increase if you need more care, if you need more than just two activities of daily living, help with those. So that fluctuates. Usually memory care is a flat rate, and it can start at about $8,000 and go up from there, depending on the community. Lastly, a flat rate is at skilled nursing and long-term care. And this is where it's the nursing home of the past, and when you need much more medical support. So if you have a chronic condition and you've gone to the hospital several times and you might need more one-on-one assistance and everything, skilled nursing is usually the answer there. But most people can live very long in assisted living. When you are comparing cost, and this is very important, from living in your home with home care to moving to assisted living, consider what your housing, your home costs, for the taxes, the groceries, the utilities, the upkeep on the house, the landscaping, all of those things need to be considered, in addition to that home care aide coming in 4 to 8 hours or 12 hours a day. And when you are getting maybe 8 hours a day in home care, then assisted living becomes more economical. It's going to be a cost differential. So let me show you an example of that. I'm going to skip that slide, go back to it. So if you had minimal care in assisted living for one person, you could do a spreadsheet like this. I'm not a financial advisor, but you could do a spreadsheet like this and estimate how long your money will last. And there are professionals that do this for a living. But if you have a financial advisor, I think you should be asking, what should I expect as far as long-term care costs in the future, and how long will my money last? So many times I find that people are so afraid that their money won't last, except when we do a little spreadsheet like this, they go, oh, that's not so bad. But again, this is very basic, and it doesn't include a lot of things like an escalating cost at the assisted living or higher care level as time goes on. So it's really something that deserves quite a bit more time and attention. The only other thing I'll say about this is I was just talking to an elder law attorney, which I'm going to talk about in a slide. Elder law attorneys are fabulous in helping you get your legal documents completed. And the elder law attorney that I was talking to recently said, if you're a couple and you have less than $1 million in assets for your care as you age, you really should be consulting an attorney about Medicaid planning. Medicaid is for the impoverished, and there are certain criteria, which I'm going to talk about in a minute as well, to get the long-term care. So let's go back to this one. So CCRCs, here are some misconceptions that I see quite a bit. If you've gone out and researched in the last, few years and go, I love Green Springs and Springfield, or I love Ashby Ponds, or I love Goodwin House or Falcons Landing or Westminster at Lake Ridge, all of these, which I could go on and on, the CCRCs, I really like it. But if you wait too long to move in and you need assisted living when you move in, because they will evaluate you, you're not going to be able to go to that community. So again, CCRCs are designed for you to enter at an independent living level. It doesn't mean you have to be perfectly healthy, but it does mean that probably, before you're 80, you should really think about moving. So that's 75 to 80 years old, depending on your specific situation, you really should be considering the CCRC. Don't wait too long. And the other thing I mentioned is that home care is cheaper than moving to a senior community. And that's not always true, because you still have expenses in your home, like I mentioned. And when you move to a senior community or a retirement community, those costs are factored into your monthly rate. The other thing I mentioned is couples need to make sure that they have a backup plan, and that might be a family member, but a backup plan for care. So how many of you could raise your hands right now if you wanted, how many of you are solo agers? You and your spouse, or you alone, are solo agers? Is there anybody out there? I can't see everybody's hands. But solo agers really need to plan effectively and have legal representation, financial representation, and healthcare representation. It's like a three-legged stool. So those are your team members that are going to support you as you age and be there for you in an emergency. If you're caring for a spouse, you need a backup plan as well. Okay, moving on. So let me get back to Medicaid. Medicaid does pay for long-term care. Medicare does not. So to receive Medicaid support for long-term care, you have to be down to your last $2,000 in assets. There are countable assets and non-countable assets. And that's what an elder law attorney does, help you plan if this is your case. You must need a nursing home level of care, which is probably help with dressing, bathing, transferring, that kind of thing. At least 3 of those activities of daily living. And like I said, the estate planning is crucial. If you have not reviewed or done your legal documents for advance directives, living wills, your regular will, in the last 5 years, I encourage you to review that information and go over it to make sure your wishes are there and they haven't changed. Like some of the people we asked to have power of attorney, maybe they're not in a good position anymore to be power of attorney. So that's important to review those documents every 5 years or so. If you need to find an elder law attorney, the Virginia Academy of Elder Law Attorneys is one of the places to find them, and that is the website right there. And again, this is on my website in resources. Okay, a couple more slides. What is an aging life care professional? I get this question a lot and people scratch their head and go, what do you do, Heidi? Well, we are there for you when maybe you don't have enough family support, maybe family support isn't nearby, or your family is so overwhelmed that they need consultative services. And that's what we do. We are what I like to call sometimes private pay case managers. Sometimes people hire us for a couple hours. Sometimes people hire us for the rest of their lives to oversee, and that's the care management. It's not caregiving like Dolores does, it's care management. So if you had a really, really smart son or daughter with all the medical and aging knowledge, they could be an aging life care professional. And that's what we do. We specialize in this as nurses, social workers, and other professionals in that arena. We do assessments, we respond in an emergency 24/7. I don't think anybody should go to the hospital alone, not even myself, not even any adult. To advocate for yourself when you're in a health crisis is a little tricky. So consider who's going to be that person for you. And the most important thing is that we're helping people plan for the best quality of life as they age. And planning is going to create such better outcomes. That's the website there, aginglifecare.org. You can find geriatric care managers all across the nation. And here's my contact information, and here is my business partner. It's a pleasure to speak to you all again. I don't know if I told you anything new, but it certainly deserves revisiting from time to time. And I hope you have conversations with your family and your loved ones about what your plans are. Thank you.
So
Right.
Heidi, I saw a few questions it looks like come through on the chat. We do provide weekend care, and Heidi does provide care management on the weekends. We are both in the people taking care of people business, so you don't turn off, so typically our businesses don't close down. So we do a lot of things, late nights and early mornings and over the weekend as well.
Ellie, you had a question on life planning communities, that term. Would you like to ask the question directly? Ellie Dusenbach? Maybe she has moved on, sorry.
Lost. Yeah.
And we've also had questions about long-term care and when it kicks in. If you would just address that whole concept, and I know it's a huge topic.
Dolores, do you want to start tackling that? Because I know the first thing people need is home care usually.
So long-term care is kind of like Heidi had mentioned about that application for skilled nursing or Medicaid. You're going to have at least 2 activities of daily living to qualify to use your long-term care policy. Meaning in the state of Virginia, companion care means we don't touch you. And in order to have or utilize your long-term care, there has to be 2 hands-on needs: bathing, dressing, toileting. If you have an inability to prepare your meals or be able to feed yourself, it has to be hands-on care. Most long-term care policies are going to have what they call an elimination period. That elimination period, dependent on the policy, could be 30 to 100 days. Most are typically set at 90 days. So what that means is that from the date of the claim, and they will go retroactive to the date of your claim, because it'll take a while to get an approval, you will pay out of pocket for 90 dates of service before the policy itself will kick in. So if you have a long-term care policy, you definitely want to review, but you need to also ask what your allowances look like. Policies can be written with a per diem allowance, meaning you can spend up to this much money per day, or they can be written with a lifetime cap of a financial number or a number of calendar days that they will cover care, and then the policy's been exhausted. Unfortunately, every policy is written differently. And what we have right now is a lot of long-term care companies that did not expect so many people's policies to come to fruition at one time. When these were sold, the average life expectancy was less. And like Heidi said, it was expected that you were going to pass in your night, and it was going to be something quick, and you weren't going to utilize that. And what we're finding is that through different interventions that are put in place through different disease processes, people are living longer. And that looks different for everyone, where we may be fully cognizant, but our body is giving out, or vice versa. We are walking and talking and moving around freely, but we are not oriented to place or time, and we're not safe to be alone. So anytime you feel like you need to utilize long-term care, definitely file your claim. If you do not have your advanced care planning documentation, I saw a comment about not letting my children decide for me. This is a place that you will be stuck with long-term care. If you do not have a designated person, a power of attorney, an advance directive that they have on file in the event that you are unable to speak for yourself, they will not be able to start a claim or to get any information from your long-term care policy without any form of advanced care planning or legal documentation. So if you do have those, Heidi mentioned a file of life. Put your advanced care planning documents in an acetate behind or next to that file of life on the refrigerator for EMS, but also share it with your long-term care insurance company. Any hospital that you would be going to, fax it to them and ask it to be uploaded to your medical records, right? Your electronic medical record, so that they know your wishes. But long-term care is one, if they can get out of paying through a separate assessment, or through denying access to your information because you are not the point person on the phone and your family's trying to do it for you, don't give them excuses, right? Be completely proactive.
Dolores, could you reiterate what the what you need, the power of attorney, and what was the other reference you made needs to be designated?
So the power of attorney or an advance directive will both appoint who will speak for you in both financial and medical, right? So there are, Heidi had mentioned an elder law attorney. They, even if you have done those documents, please review them. We, especially as couples, right? We always think, like in my instance, I always say my husband's going to outlive me. But that may not be the case. And our advanced care planning is set up to that effect. If something happens, there's a new diagnosis, or we appoint one of our children, my husband and I have 7, and you think that's the best one to do this. And that may have been the best one when he was in his 20s, right? Because he was the most responsible. But then they hit their 30s and their 40s and their life circumstances change, and that may not be the best child anymore. Tax laws change, inheritance laws change. If you have those advanced care planning documents and they're over 5 years old, like Heidi said, 10 years old, have them looked at.
Heidi, you just wrote in the chat that whole life insurance policies with care riders are replacing long-term care insurance, and you say they are great. What if you've been paying premiums on long-term care forever? I mean, at this point, what do you do? I mean, we're just like.
No, keep paying them. Keep paying them. I'm just saying, if you don't have long-term care insurance, you can get something called whole life insurance. I did this, I paid a lump sum. And the nice thing about it is that it's got a cash value. I can cash it out anytime I want. It's got a death benefit, because the kids think they're going to get something. Well, I guess they will. And if I don't, but it also, for my husband and I, depending on the amount you put in, we get a few $1,000s each month to pay for our care. So it's much more flexible and fluid. And there are good financial advisors and insurance advisors that are selling these policies. They're really the next best thing. It's fabulous. And you can like I said, pay a lump sum, or you can pay a monthly amount over 5 years and then you're done paying, and it can never change. Premiums can never change, all of that. So it's pretty cool.
I'd like to say too that with long-term care, one thing I discovered through somebody else who had the same company is that my long-term care policy had appreciated. So what I had signed up for initially through my employer was worth more now. And I think some have that as part of it and some don't. But it was good news.
Yes, because if you look at what's happened with the minimum wage increases, Montgomery County, Maryland, just across the bridge for most of us, is gone to a minimum wage of $15 per hour. When we had a daily allowance of $157, what does that look like from a care standpoint? When you look at the average cost of a live-in program or the daily rate at a skilled nursing or an assisted living facility, I can tell you $157 doesn't cover it.
Sure.
You're very fortunate if they're doing a rate of inflation on your policy. That's fantastic. I'd like to know who that company is.
Okay.
And apparently, the state of Washington, and this is probably going to happen nationwide. Well, I shouldn't say nationwide, but a few states are going to follow suit. State of Washington, you now have to pay into a social insurance tax of some kind, and they are essentially getting people to save to pay for care eventually. Because we haven't been very good at it, to be honest. And people, maybe in their 40s and 50s aren't doing it as well as maybe some of us here have done.
Yeah, there's current legislation to put that into place for any company employee that's works for a company that has over 10 employees. I don't know if any of you attend the Northern Virginia Aging Network, but they do a lot with the legislation in the area, and the lobbying, and put forth information on the bills that are coming into play, like the raise of Social Security age maxing out from 70 to 75.
Okay, I have another question, which goes back to something Heidi was talking about, and it's not related to long-term care, but I have a family member who is really having a lot of difficulty with her medications. And these pill packs, I didn't know about them. It looked like a Scotch tape dispenser or something. What is it? You pull out every day and it's full of the pills that you're going to need? And the pharmacy.
Is that a question?
Yeah. I mean, I've never
Yeah.
seen one.
They are so fabulous. Nothing's perfect, but there's a company called Revolution Meds in Fairfax. They do it. Amazon does it, and it is called pill packs. And then there's one in Herndon called My Doctor's Pharmacy. There are some concierge pharmacies out there that will either do blister packs of 30 or those rolls of plastic baggies that have your, and a lot of them will deliver, because we're always looking, as care managers, we're always looking for the easiest way and the lowest cost ways to do things, not the lowest cost necessarily, because these concierge pharmacies, they're no different than your CVS. And I think CVS even has a product like that you can sign up for. So they're doing this at no extra charge. Everybody wants your business with the medications, they're making money.
Interesting.
It sounds excellent for people who are confused. Yeah.
Or not confused. They could do it if they weren't confused either.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Another question about nurses. Now, when you say, the qualified nurses for at Capital City Nurses, now, does that mean that your RNs, nurse practitioners, practical nurses, what is the range of skill that qualifies a nurse to be part of this and to, give medication and so forth.
So caregivers have to be certified as well as the nurses. So a caregiver can be a home health aide, personal care assistant, or a certified nursing assistant.
But they can't give medication.
But they cannot give medications. They cannot, in the state of Virginia, medication administration is anything as simple as opening a pill bottle and pulling a pill from it, like Heidi said. They can't pack the pill boxes. The nurses, however, can, an LPN or an RN, but they're still operating under a physician's order. So even on a private pay basis, like you couldn't call tomorrow and just say, I need a nurse to come out and do IV injections for vitamin B. We're going to do B12 injections, or I need an iron supplement. They would still have to operate under a physician's order, and then they would administer based on that order. So that's an LPN or an RN. And then we work with nurse practitioners and physicians. One of the things COVID did do for us is open up a lot of visiting services that come to the home now that are under Medicare that are not necessarily charging concierge fees. Before, when you had a visiting physician, a concierge physician, you were paying a significant amount of money for them to come to the home. And now there are several physicians, podiatrists that are visiting under Medicare patients in their homes, which is wonderful.
Mike Foxworth, you have two questions about the availability of personnel with the low unemployment situation, and another one on what other options are available if CRCs are not. What other options are out there? Mike, do you want to add to your question?
No, I think that pretty much is the question.
Well, I can address staffing. Heidi can address the other. So we have the dynamic switched in COVID with a lot of the caregivers and a lot of service-related personnel staying home. The stipend that was given for a lot of service-related employees gave them more to be on employment than they made on an hourly basis to work. So we noticed in COVID kind of where that trend was going. So we started in increasing our recruiting efforts. We hired recruiting managers for every area, as well as boots on the ground, local recruitment in the offices. And we were very fortunate in the fact that it affected us, but it didn't hurt us. We are large enough. We're the largest home care company in the Mid-Atlantic. We have offices in multiple regions. And because they're all employees as opposed to independent contractors, I can pull caregivers from any office I need to help a family. And we are actively recruiting. We put as much effort into our clinical oversight of the care as we do into the recruitment efforts of qualified caregivers, because we can have 100 applicants, but we may only hire 10 of that 100. Because there's still standards regardless of labor shortages. I would rather tell someone I can't help them than give them subpar care.
As a follow-up, before Heidi answers his other question, we had a friend who needed home health care, and the person who was sent was a lovely person, but she could not read English. And so therefore, she couldn't really help with cooking because she needed a cookbook to cook, and she couldn't read the English cookbooks, and what she was able to cook was her native country food that this woman didn't want to eat. What kind of precautions can you take that you not be assigned someone like this, or what do you do if you are having dietary issues, or all based on the fact that she couldn't read English?
I think we lost Dolores.
Yeah.
Looked like she had to move out of a place, but I can kind of answer that. And we tell clients all the time, you can ask for a different caregiver. So if it's not a good fit and you need somebody that can cook a little more American, then yeah, that should be part of the intake and the questioning, just to make sure that that's a good fit. You know, it's never going to be perfect. It's really, really hard. I had some surgeries this year, and I thought to myself, Oh my gosh, I understand now. You are at the mercy of somebody and the way they want to care for you, right? So it is a little give and take with all of that, but that's pretty basic, Pat, and I would just ask for a different caregiver.
Okay. Well, they made the 30 days, somehow. Mike, I'm not sure the second part of your question, if you would like to repeat it.
Oh, he wanted to know, if you can't go to a CCRC, where do you go?
Right.
And that really depends on what your needs are, because what I would probably advise is a senior apartment or some kind of condo complex for 55 and older. The problem with that is you're still bringing home care in. Okay, so a CCRC is actually having healthcare on site, having those amenities that you might need and want. So if it's a cost, you might want to consider moving out of this expensive area. That's one thing. Or maybe just trying to make do in your own home, or move to a home that's a little more accessible.
Dolores is back.
My
There she
apologies.
is.
I had some kind of power surge. I heard a noise and it sounded like static and then everything went. So
That happens. So would you clarify, Heidi, if you're in a CCRC and you don't really want to go to assisted living, are you allowed to bring in additional help to help you stay with your spouse? Because I think one thing that would upset me about a CCRC is that if one person needs it, it's not, you don't always move as a couple. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true. You can bring in home care. Now, every community is just a little different, and that's a really good question when you're visiting places. What precipitates a move to assisted living? What are the requirements? And typically, it's a conversation between the nursing staff, social worker, perhaps, and the family and the resident, because the community, all they want is for somebody to be safe. So if, and most people will bring in home care, that's very common. But whose home care do you use? Do you use the community's home care? Or do they have suggestions to use? Or can you get somebody from the outside?
Heidi, when you were here addressing us the last time, you mentioned being smart enough to be on a waiting list somewhere because of the 3 to 5 years or however, maybe longer now. Could you readdress that, please?
Yeah, the worst one I've seen recently is Vincent Hall in McLean. You have to be a GS 13 or GS 14 government employee or a commissioned officer to live there. And they still have a 7-year waiting list in their new part.
Mhm.
Their old part, maybe a 2-year waiting list. And that's pretty typical, a year or two, not uncommon. But there are definitely some communities that, everybody moved in at the same time in these communities. For instance, Green Springs is a really good example about this. They probably had a phased in initial move in to some extent, but if everybody moved in when they were 75 and now those people have lived there 15, 20 years and they might be passing away, they're going to have a lot of apartment inventory. During COVID, there were a lot of vacancies. And that was partly because people weren't moving in and partly because people were passing away a little bit quicker than we would have all liked. I mean, let's face it, it hit retirement communities to some degree. So it really depends on the community, depends on the size apartment you want, and yeah, you just have to go to them and find out what their typical waiting list is. And they hate to say it. They hate to give you any hard answers on that. But, you just tell them, don't worry, I won't hold you to it. If you say it's going to be a minimum of 6 months, that's good. Because that gives me a chance to plan, downsize and everything else I need to be thinking about.
So what happens if your name comes up and you're not ready to move there? Does your name go to the bottom of the list, or how does that work?
Nope, you stay on the top.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think after a couple of phone calls, they might go, well, we might just pass Pat over. They understand. You're on a waiting list, and you've really thought about when I'm about 80 years old or something. But they're still going to call you once in a while to see where you're at, see if you've had any changes in your health or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've got a question, if I may. I didn't get to listen to some of it. I was running a carousel. But anyway, on long-term care, Virginia just allowed them to increase it 40% on the what you have to pay each month to have it. And so we're faced with a decision. Do we want to cut back by, right now, I guess it's unlimited time on it, to go back to like 6 years or 4 years, or cut back on the level of coverage? What do you have any thoughts on that?
I rarely have heard a financial advisor saying, get rid of your policy. I think you should keep your policy, and you should find the answer that works for you. It's a dilemma. It's tough, but if you can continue to pay a little bit more and get the higher level of care that you are looking for eventually, that's very important.
What about the length? Right now we got, I guess, unlimited, but if we went to just 6 years, it cuts the price about a third on a monthly basis.
Yeah. And that's a very personalized situation, and you really need to talk to a financial advisor about it, because it has to do with your other assets, your income, and how you're going to pay for care in the long run.
Mhm.
Yeah, financial advisor could talk you through things like the premium will go down, because if you are having a 6-year rider, right, the likelihood of the next 6 years that you need them, it's a risk analysis for the long-term care company. So a financial advisor could guide you through something like an annuity with a 6% return that would make up the financial difference. But Heidi's right; those are really good conversations to have with them, because they may be able to find other avenues that you could put revenue into that will be income generating, that'll make up the difference of that cost.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much. And I'll go back, and since it's been recorded, I'll go back and listen to the whole thing at some point. Thank you. God bless.
Okay. I don't see any other questions in the chat box.
I see something Mike wrote, and I know Mike, and I know what he's getting at. He said, what if you need assisted living, but you love the sound of children, you like the intergenerational aspect of it? And the only thing I would say is, you're not going to necessarily find it, but here's the thing. Sunrise of Fairfax, it's on Route 50, and you just kind of have to explore options. They have oh my gosh, what's the name of the private school next to it? Maybe Dolores remembers. There's a private school next to it. I'm sorry?
Is it a Montessori?
No. It's a K through 6 or something like that. It starts with the M. Merritt Academy. That's what it is. I'm sorry. And it's right next to Sunrise of Fairfax. And I know they have some intergenerational things going on. It's never perfect. Care scenarios are never perfect. And it's a challenging time of life, and change is inevitable. And I wish there were more intergenerational things. As an industry, we talk about that. We understand that. I will say, if you're in a CCRC, there are people under 30 years old working there. There are dining staff people that are high schoolers, And we used to have the community I worked at, we had a play group come in and we had trick-or-treaters coming in. So it really just depends. And if you're part of a community, you can maybe be the ambassador to spearhead things like that.
Also, if you're in the independent living phase still, you can volunteer at schools. They are desperate for people to read with children, work with them on catching up after COVID. So.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, the Boys and Girls Clubs also are constantly looking for volunteers and for mentors. And, you know, there are ways to engage even in assisted living. In this age of technology and virtual platforms, there's a lot of, with the rise of mental health and COVID, it didn't just affect our older generations, it affected our younger as well. And a lot of them are looking for ways to reconnect or are having separation anxieties because we had so many pass away from COVID. A lot of children lost their grandparents. They lost an ability to have that elder to go to. So there's a lot of mentoring programs that are now done virtually. And I don't know if you heard my answer before everything here popped on the cooking.
No.
So the communication is definitely important on what needs to happen. I would have questioned the certification, because if someone can't read and write for the English language, how did they become certified? Because there are tests that you have to take for your certifications. But also, you know, communicating with the client services coordinators and your nurses at assessment to tell them these are priorities. They definitely can match you then with an appropriate caregiver, and that you're never stuck. That's the one thing I think, one of the biggest misconceptions, especially with the labor shortages. Everybody thinks, oh my gosh, I was lucky to get a caregiver. No, if it's not the right caregiver, there are others available.
Okay.
Right. So always communicate and say this is a priority. You know, is someone going to come in and make grandma's mac and cheese taste exactly like grandma's mac and cheese? No. But can they come in and know how to cook home cooked food? Because that's what we prefer. A meatloaf and mashed potatoes versus a peanut butter stew. You know, meatloaf and mashed potatoes will win most of the time. So asking, can they cook these things? We used to ask our caregivers, do you know how to make a kosher hamburger? And they would be like, absolutely. Well, there's no such thing as a kosher hamburger.
Oh, interesting.
So you just got to have some qualifiers. Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you all. It looks like we talked long enough, and we appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll probably be inviting both of you back again. So,
Thank you
for
very
having
much.
us.
Very informative. Thank you.
Yes, there's something new every
Right.
year. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome to stay on too if you want to listen to the rest of the meeting.
Oh, Lou Masway had his hand up. I hope it, Lou, did you have one final question? I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
I was applauding for the ladies.
Oh, okay. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, ladies. Have a great weekend. And gents.
And
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, it's around 3. Let's see, we've got a break, I think, in 1 minute. So if there anyone has a question, we'll do it now, or we can take a break right now and be back here at about 3:35.
Hey, thank you.
See you in a bit.
I love breaks. Ooh, Lord. 30 more minutes. Hey, Pat,
Yes, sir.
do you have Dolores's phone number? Did you get that in your notes?
Wait 1 second, please. I'm
Okay.
doing practicing my share screen to see that it's ready.
All right.
Sorry. There you
Looks good
go.
from here.
Yeah, I think it's right. No, I did not have Dolores's, but we certainly have it in the,
Okay.
we have it about.
It's in the
10
brochure.
It's in
You looking
the,
for a phone number?
yeah. Oh, yeah, I got it. Do you want it?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
703
Okay.
407
407. Okay.
0082.
0082.
Okay. And Judd, do you know who would you put that's Dolores's? Or maybe you did.
I'm doing it.
Okay. And then the last question is, do you know who the person who has just the phone number is?
No, but I bet I can find it in our database.
Yeah, 352-5438. Sometimes you know just from looking at the last 4 digits.
Yes, usually that's David Bush, though.
Right. That one I would know.
All right, 1 second.
That's a shame. Ellie only stayed for, I guess, about 10 or 15 minutes. She didn't get her question answered.
Well, that was quite a question.
Yeah.
Oh, what'd you say the last 4 digits were?
Hang on.
I'm sorry.
For Dolores?
5438.
5438. No,
Or we could just
that's
ask.
not showing up.
Okay.
So
Now, Pat, are you doing the thing about the update on Greg Manson, or is Terry? I've got Terry.
I am sorry, Terry isn't here.
Okay, I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, small correction. She's at a graduation ceremony.
No problem. All right.
And then I'll do my wrap up, which is just the meetings and events, and then you do the final wrap up.
I didn't know if we had any new members, new people.
Are we still recording, Judd?
yes,
Okay. I think Nabila might be new, but I'm not sure.
yeah, there were several.
No, I'm not new. I've come several times before. Thank
Oh,
you.
good. Thank you.
And I really appreciate you having this discussion and this topic. It's very helpful.
Excellent. I also told my husband as soon as we had the break, well, we have some work to do because we don't have our directive. And so we've been paying long-term care for forever, it seems like anyway. And she's telling us that wouldn't even kick in because we don't have our directive. So we got to get our act together.
Oh, that's very important. Yes. Thank you for pointing that out.
Right. I did not realize that they won't even talk to you basically, or your daughters or whoever you thought they would converse with. And my husband always says, we're going to age in place. We're not going to give up the house, but I had back surgery and I realized how difficult the steps were. And maybe it's a foolish statement to say we're going to stay. That's what we wish we're going to do, but what are our plans? So.
Well, my wife and I just signed up to with a CCRC. It's a Erickson Homes, which has done 14 of these around the country, and there's one up in DC. And they're just starting a new one in Richmond.
Oh, good.
And they
I've heard of them.
They operate Ashby Ponds, don't they?
Yeah, Ashley Pond, that's correct.
Right, in Green Spring and Riderwood in Maryland, they're all Erickson.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They they have a protocol and they know what they're doing, and we've been very impressed. And the waiting list is like 2 months right now. So
Okay, good.
You know, one good point, one lesson learned when we're talking about the long-term care, you know, maybe you've been paying the long-term care premium, but then if you get forgetful or whatever, and you don't look at the mail, the insurance company cancels the policy because they didn't get the premium. So it's always good to have,
Good point.
we're not checking the mail, but someone to a backup listed with the insurance company to send the notice to.
Yes, we have that set up for our daughter to get ours.
Yeah,
If
good.
that's a very good point, Lou. You might want to reiterate that when people.
When the group gets back, yeah, because it was a real problem, and I think they worked it out, but it wasn't easy.
Mhm. Well, someone told me that the Virginia state retirement system for the teachers, at least, was a better option than what we've been paying for years. And I'm a little nervous about canceling what we've been paying for, but the other sounds like it might be better. So that's when you get to that, I guess, elder care attorney and say, or your financial advisor and say, how do we decide which is the best way to do it?
Right, yeah, that's definitely a conversation to have with them.
Right. That was too individual for a question to them, but it's certainly something that we need to consider.
I wonder how many of our 400 or so on our mailing list have either $1 million in assets or long-term care.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, that's a good question.
I suspect not very many.
Right.
Yeah, I was like shocked and I'm thinking Medicaid kicks in and I don't know.
Yeah.
But then you have to be down to your last $2,000. The whole thing is just so overwhelming.
Yeah. I could wax political, but you probably don't want to hear me.
No, we're not going there. Well, it's
really, we live in a society which just says that they want to help, but aren't willing to cough up the money.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, as a child, her grandmother worked in a nursing home at least some of the time, and the people who lived in the nursing home desperately wanted to see and touch and hear children. They just desperately wanted it, and she can remember as a child being taken to the place because what she remembers is older people reaching out for her because they were so desperate to see a child, and as she remembers as a child just being terrified. And that's the reason I asked about wanting to hear children.
No, that's a good question. Okay, because of timing, I've got 3:40, and Lou Mazway had a very interesting question concerning long-term care insurance that I would like him to just respond to.
Oh, sure, Bill. I'm glad. So we had some good friends of ours. He had been paying the good friend of mine had been paying the premium on the long-term care for years and years. But he got dementia, and then the policy lapsed because he wasn't sending in the monthly premium anymore. And had not listed a relative or friend as a backup to receive notices of non-payment of premium. And so the lesson there, and because it had been a long time when he took the policy out, he said, why do I need to list somebody? Or I guess, or whatever. So it's just a lesson there. And that took a while. I really haggled to work it out. And they had spent so much, paid for 10 years at least on that policy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the other thing on long-term care insurance, I've had mine for like 25 years. And in the past 5 years, every year they try and get me to cancel the premium or cancel, and they keep going up in the price, and they keep eliminating my, compound interest and elimination days. It's crazy, but I will say that whatever you do, keep it as long as you can.
Yeah.
Never give it up, because they want you to give it up.
Sure they do.
yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Well, we've got to get back on because
We're getting back on,
we're
and
behind.
Pat, I've got you on the next, and Pat, take us away.
Actually, it was going to be Judd, but I am going to take it away, and because we must get to the wrap up. If you'll actually go to the next slide, this is the most important for us to hear. This is just a reference, and this will all be on our website. And if you can't remember the new one, you can go still to dcpnsupport.org and go to the calendar. And Judd will put it in the chat. I think it's been put in the chat a couple of times. This is just so that you know of events that are coming up that you might want to participate in. The first one is the PN support group for Pittsburgh is meeting on June 15th. That's this week at 6:30 via Zoom. And the speaker is Joe Ponzi of Ponzi Shoes. And he will speak on the importance of the correct shoes in managing your peripheral neuropathy pain. If you are interested, you can go to wilshireb@comcast.net. And as I said, this will be on our website, and I will try to put it in the chat as well. Also on Thursday night this week, the 16th, not this week, the 16th, the PN support group of Bethesda Chevy Chase is meeting. This will be via Zoom as well at 7 o'clock. And this is Steve Klitzman's new group in Maryland. Everyone is welcome. You certainly don't need to be Bethesda Chevy Chase residents. And they've had a really great response to their monthly meetings. They've been averaging about 30 people. So if you are interested in attending another information sharing kind of discussion group, it will be on the 16th. Another thing to know is there is a podcast that's available now on neuropathy, diagnosis, treatment, education, and advocacy. This is a conversation between Glenn Rabotsky with the Western Neuropathy Association and a woman named Dr. Leslie Krongold. And she does the Glass Half Full podcast. And here is the reference. And again, we will have this up on our website. But if you are interested in this podcast, please give it your attention. Glenn has been very active in the Western Neuropathy Association. And actually the title of it was Neuropathy Patient Turned Advocate. Lastly, about our group here in DC, Virginia, we need you to reference that there will be no July meeting. In fact, there is no Maryland meeting either in July. So for us, our next meeting will be on August 20th, which we are considering as an in-person social at Sleepy Hollow Bath and Racket, which is here in Alexandria Falls Church area. We are just beginning to put together a committee on this. We are not sure how many people are interested yet in getting together in person, but we have been asked to host a social. So this is one alternative idea that has come up. Terry Orlando, one of our members, arranged for it, and we do have the pool booked for that time, or the part of the gazebo, I guess. The problem with it is, do we want to have it catered and charge a fee to cover the catering costs, or do we want to do it as a potluck? So we will be sending out a survey about that. Just wanted you to do August 20th as a save your date if you are interested at all in meeting and an in-person social kind of arrangement. Also very important that's not on here is that Joanne Jessen pointed out that September 3rd, which would be our September meeting, is Labor Day weekend. And we have historically changed it to the second Saturday for that holiday weekend because so many people go away for Labor Day. So the September meeting, although it doesn't say it here, will be on September 10th. But don't worry if you don't get all of this, or if you have your phone, take a picture of this slide and you'll remember everything. It will be on our website right here, pnsnnetwork.org, and search the calendar or wait for a email message from us. Wow, that was a lot to cover. If you want to take a minute and write any of this down, we'll also try to put this in the chat before the end of the meeting. And now we're going to go, I hope, to an update on Dr. Greg Masson's incredible journey across country. He left from DC. In fact, this group was his kickoff group that sent him off on his way on his journey from DC to San Francisco. He is already 2/3 of the way across. He has raised $56,000 at this point for the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy.
It's 60 as of this morning.
60 as of oh, excellent. I had looked, I thought it was still at 56. That's even better news. In fact, he's done so well, and the whole foundation volunteer group has done so well in getting him coverage as he's moved across country. Almost every major city that he's stopped in has interviewed him or had some kind of newspaper coverage of his trip. And I'm hoping that the DC group will host him either in September or more likely October to welcome him back, because he is in fact a DC resident, and have him speak on this incredible journey. And I'm going to try now to share the screen and hope this will work. And here we go.
Dr. Gregory F. Mawson made a stop at Peddler's Corner in Sydney on Tuesday during his e-bike tour across America. Mawson is e-biking for the Foundation of Peripheral Neuropathy. This disease causes weakness and numbing to areas of the body, mostly the hands and feet. Peripheral neuropathy affects over 30 million people in America a year, one of them being Mawson. There are over 100 different types of peripheral neuropathy, and Mawson has post-infectious small fiber neuropathy. Mawson said the disease used to affect him so badly he could hardly walk or talk.
So one of the main messages of this tour, this e-bike tour across America, is there is hope. Focus on your well-being and start to think about exercising. And I know it might not appeal to everyone, and it certainly did not appeal to me, but because of e-biking, I got out of this very difficult physical, but also mental situation.
Mawson thinks he contracted his form of peripheral neuropathy from accidentally walking through a nest of tick larvae in South Africa while he was hiking in 2018.
They said you need to exercise. I said to the neurologist, are you out of your mind? I really feel really bad, and now you tell me I need to exercise? He said, yes, your particular type of peripheral neuropathy is self-limiting. With exercising, you can get out of this difficult situation with some luck. And I got a lot. I got another chance, and that got me into e-biking.
Mawson traveled 2,182 miles from Washington, D.C. to Sydney, Nebraska. He said the most difficult part has been the rain and the wind.
They say actually that you should bike from the west to the east. I don't know where this theory comes from. The wind has been blowing from all directions. And yesterday, I really had a headwind of, I think, 24 miles. And that was really hard work.
Mawson hopes to e-bike an average of 12 miles per hour and reach the Bay Area within 4 months.
It has been a phenomenal ride. I'm meeting so many interesting people. I could not have had a better preparation for my citizenship test than this e-bike ride across America.
Mawson just became an American citizen last Saturday when he passed his citizenship test, said the oath, and was sworn into the country as a citizen.
I started as a Dutch person in Washington, D.C., and I'm ending the tour as an American.
Mawson recommends e-biking to anyone who wants to travel because you get to meet a lot of people along the way and you support local businesses.
It has been quite a treat to bike through all those smaller communities. People are just wonderful.
Mawson said around 85% of all people he met either knew someone with peripheral neuropathy or have it themselves.
It's a really debilitating condition. So it's very prevalent, but very few people know about it.
Mawson said his e-bike tour is to encourage exercise, to prevent symptoms of peripheral neuropathy, and to spread awareness of the disease.
And my key message is, if you have symptoms that resemble peripheral neuropathy, if you have problems with your hands, with your feet, you have balance problems, you start to slip in depression because you do not know what you have, reach out to the medical professionals. Try to figure out what you have and visit www.ebiketour.org for more information about the condition, more information about the foundation, and more importantly also, maybe more information about the e-bike tour.
Mawson has no sponsoring, and all of the proceeds from his website go to the Peripheral Neuropathy Foundation.
As I like to say, I'm biking solo, but I'm not biking alone. I have a family of 30 million people that I care about.
For News Channel Nebraska, I'm Sarah McCoy.
I just thought that this was just an incredible story. Oh, sorry, I still have my help.
I think it's you.
Well, that looked interesting.
Bad.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that. I hope that resolved it. Anyway, I think Greg's story is incredible. He was an analog biker. He refused to give up when he was told that he had PN. And he said, well, I loved to bike before. I'm going to find a way to continue biking. He trained vigorously for more than a year, I think, to get ready for this trip. And if you have the interest, please go to ebiketour.org to continue to follow him on his way now to San Francisco. And hopefully we will hear from him in September or October. Okay, and Judd, do you want to take 2 minutes to do your donate join?
Sure. We just need to mention this every time. We are just to plug the website again. Our website is PSN Network. Anyway, you spell it like that. And we're trying to make that into a good resource for us, including keeping up to date. What I wanted to just take a minute to do is here are our key buttons. One is join. If you're on this call and you're not on our mailing list, in other words, you didn't get a direct invitation from us, please join. It's free. And all you have to do is go to this address and click the join button. And we ask very few questions, but we do need for you to sign up. And then donate. If you'd like to put something into this in a monetary way, you can go to donate. You can either do it two ways, by our automatic, just using your credit card through the website, or you can send a check, and the information is there if you just want to send a check. We're always looking for volunteers, people with special skills and people with none. We have positions where we can help. You can help us make this group better and better. The calendar is really important because it tells you what's happening next. And so just go there and you'll find, see, we haven't updated this yet, but we will real soon. and we'll be able to have details on there. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, Judd.
Sure.
And back to Bill Porter.
Yes, I would like to, we always try at the end of the meeting or close to the end to find out if there are any new people in the group or any returnees who have been living in a cave for 6 months or something, just to say hi and welcome. And we're, as I said before at the very beginning, we're all in this situation together. Interaction is a big key for us, and no question is silly. So I'm just going to leave it open. Is there anybody new that wants to speak up and say who they are? And
Yes, my name is Janet Franco, and I've been a longtime member, but I haven't been participating in over a year because I had other health issues. But the peripheral neuropathy always was a problem. It was an additional problem with additional health issues. But I'm glad to be back, and I'm looking forward to being a more involved participant. And I thought the presentations today were very helpful and useful.
Great.
well, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you. It's been
Thank
a long
you.
time. It's been over a year.
Well, that's all right. You know, well, anyway, okay. Is there anyone else? We have about 3 minutes. I got. Anyone else? Please speak up. Any new person? Any new ideas?
Well, of course, Pat's going to say something. Welcome back, Janet. Glad to see you. I recognized your face, but did not know your last name. So thank you for sharing. I wanted to just say that we are looking, when Judd mentioned volunteers, one thing that we would love to do is have people who are willing to call or email past members who have not returned for a couple of months, just to make that check that they're A, okay, and B, to encourage them to rejoin the group. Maybe they just need that one phone call or email to remind them that sharing is caring, sorry, and that the information sharing, for example, that we learned today or from the medical marijuana panel last month is so important to staying in touch and staying aware. And Lou Mazaway just pointed out that you can go to the foundation's website for two things. One, to donate to Greg Masson's journey, his cause to support PN research. And also they are having a webinar on anti-MAG PN, very specific, and I understand rare type of peripheral neuropathy, but that's going to be on June 27th. So always check the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy's website as well for information on events and webinars that they are hosting. That's it, Bill, for me. Thank you.
Okay, I again appreciate everyone for coming, and I do want to reiterate that we have no July meeting, but we are looking at a social in August 20th, and we're going to send out a just a survey about that.
An email message,
Also,
yes.
And also our next meeting will be September 10th. Because of Labor Day, we're going to move it up to the second weekend Saturday. And I believe that's it. And I want to thank Judd, Pat, Joanne for all their work. And I thought that Dolores and Heidi did a super job. And maybe Heidi will come back for a 5th time. Anyway.
And thank you, Bill.
That's all for me.
Yes.
Thank you.
And remember, you can save the chat by going to the ellipsis and clicking on save. If you want to make sure you've got all of the addresses and numbers and references, the best way to do that is to save it to your chat. And then you'll find a folder. Mine is under Zoom, and I can always find what I've saved there, but you can.
Pat, how do you save it again, the chat?
Okay, if you go to the last blank chat space where it says to everyone, where you would type in your message. There is a smiley face, and right next to it are the 3 dots, the
Yeah.
ellipsis. If you right click on
I
that,
got it. Okay, thank you.
save chat,
Okay,
okay?
where does it save it?
It's,
And we're,
go ahead, Judd.
well, we're saving it too. So if it'll be on the website. So if you miss it here, we
Right.
can have it on the website.
But
But
if
when you
you,
save it here on the ellipse, where does it save it to?
To a folder on your local computer.
Oh, show folder, I see. Okay, thank you.
on your computer, and mine is just named, well, what doesn't matter. You name it whatever you want. Okay,
But make-
Diane Walters, you have your hand raised?
Diane Walters,
Diane,
No, I was
going
a
once,
mistake.
twice.
She's there.
I'm here. I was just saying, trying to say thank you and I hit the wrong thing. So my hand is not really raised. I'm said that means thank you to me by accident. Okay, bye. Or bye.
Okay, I've got 4:02, so as far as I'm concerned, this meeting is called to adjournment. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Second passed.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good summer.
Bye.
No July meeting. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Are we going to stay on a few minutes to handle any?
Yes.
Looks like people are pretty.
God bless everybody. Have a wonderful summer.
Rodney, good to hear from you.
Did you catch any of the carousel there?
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping up with the kids. I know that they must be thrilled to be outside and playing.
Boy, it was packed. Every ride, pretty much. They were doing it every 20 minutes. I hardly had.
I think our speakers thought it was a hoot that you were running a carousel while attending a meeting. That was double jeopardy right there.
Yeah.
I called it dedication. I think it's great.
Great. Now we're going to go give blood and get our Nats T-shirt and 2 tickets to a future Nats game.
Great.
You get
So-
two
And then
tickets. You get 2 tickets to a Nats game?
Yeah, we're going down to the Nats Stadium to donate blood, and we're going to get a T-shirt and 2 tickets to the future Nats.
Well,
game.
fantastic. Great. Good job.
Okay.
Excellent.
God bless everybody. Lord be with you and stay safe.
God bless.
Bye-bye. Well, I'm not staying on long because I was supposed to be planting plants that are drooping earlier today and ended up talking to Judd and doing the slideshow instead of doing my planting. So that's all right. My husband's out there in the heat or the whatever. It doesn't look too bad. I'm happy. This was great. As always, I learn something every time Heidi speaks, and it just makes me realize what we haven't done and need to do. We keep talking about doing it, and we never make the appointment with the lawyer or whatever we're supposed to do. So that's on our agenda now.
Yeah, I thought it was a good meeting, a good presentation. She's always good. We didn't have a good attendance though.
Yes, I was sad.
That was about 19 connections is what I saw.
Right.
And for other things, we've had 35 and 40.
Well, I'm just amazed. I don't know what the deal is with Steve, but he's averaging 30 a month. I don't know if it's because so many go out on the suburban hospital email list. She does send it to 30,000 people. So obviously the pool is large, but still to have them consistently coming, I think that's fabulous.
It's good.
Now I'm going to.
I wonder to what extent it reflects the fact that many members don't really want to face the future.
Wait, that cut off. What'd you say, Mike?
Yeah, I didn't understand you, Mike.
I wonder to what extent it reflects the fact that many of the members really don't want to think about the future.
Oh, well, yeah. I bet you that has something to do with it.
Sure. But still, he's getting 30 and we're getting 19.
Oh, no, we're consistently getting 30 and 40.
Right, and that's why I was like, oh, wow, I think we're smart not to have July, because I don't think people just are already, I don't know, peeling off to do their travels or their whatever, so I guess that's a
Bring up
fact.
again what I said during the break. How many of our members have $1 million or long-term care? And for whom a discussion about how to deal with the future is irrelevant because they simply don't have access to the financial resources to implement this, what they're talking about.
You think they just took themselves out of this presentation?
Yeah, this is irrelevant. I don't have the funds to do what these people are going to talk about. Some of them have probably heard some of the earlier presentations and remember that and said, well, none of that applied to me because I simply do not have the financial resources. I think maybe it may be that some future date we might want to have a session about how to deal with the future when you don't have $1 million and you don't have long-term care.
I'm writing down. I didn't understand the $2,000 thing that she said about Medicaid. How can she say if you have less than $1 million in assets, you're eligible for Medicaid, and then later on said you have to be at your last $2,000 to get Medicaid approval? That didn't make sense to me.
No, you're jamming two things together that don't go together. If you want to do it on your own with your own finances, you need about $1 million, or you need long-term care or some combination that will tide you over. If you don't have either of those things, or you're fairly limited in your savings, the typical American family has, less than $10,000 in savings. In other words, a month's worth of funds. Then you have to get rid of all your assets to only have $2,000 basically in funds. At that point, you can start using. The government will start paying for nursing home care. But it's pretty miserable nursing home care. It's really, really poor care.
Yeah, exactly. Scary.
Well, yeah, I think people from what I've heard, basically you can basically turn all your money, your assets over to one of these communities, and they'll take it and they'll support you for the rest of your life right now. But I think there's an unspoken message here. There's I don't think she wanted to get into it. I think this is America's hidden Pandora's box, probably.
As this great generation is all moving at the same time to need help. I don't know what's going to happen. It's really scary.
And we got hundreds of thousands of people sitting at the southern border who'd love to come in and be caregivers.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Everywhere I go these days, there are old people. Have you noticed that?
No.
They're all my age.
It's your eyesight. They're not actually there. You're just seeing them.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better.
I don't know. Well, I am going to go because I promised my husband I would not stay after 4 o'clock and chat. So everybody, thank you for all your help with everything. And